All right, cool. So I'm joined today by my man, Barry Laminack, Houston comedian, former ESPN host. Now he's the host of Barry on Deck, which is a great show on YouTube. One of the
Oh,
guys I've
you're
been
too
following
kind.
for a couple of years. It is. It's funny and it's real. So that's why I love reaching out. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on. You're just getting off a show now, so I know I'm kind of pushing you to be on live for a long time. But so what's going on with you, Barry?
Dude, man, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Always love doing other people's shows. You know, when you do a show, as you know, it's a different vibe, right? Like you've got all the stuff that you have to do, and then you worry about the show and everything else. So it's nice to just talk into a mic and I don't have to worry about shit. I just get to hang out. So yeah, this is cool being on the other side.
Excellent, man. Well, I appreciate it. I know I may have missed a couple of your titles. I know you're also a cat owner. You're a lawn connoisseur. I know there's a lot of things that go on in the
I'm a
Barry Laminack
complex.
world.
I'm a complex man. If you were my wife, you would be befuddled by all the complex. I'm really simple. I'm just like I don't have a job. Like I was sports talk radio for a few years, got let go. So now there's no comedy. I just do YouTube and mow yards. That's literally what I'm. A 13-year-old now is basically what it comes down to. I get on YouTube and I mow the yard. I'm a fucking. Oh, can I cuss on this? I
Yeah,
don't
you
know.
can absolutely. Yeah, there's
Okay,
no.
my
Yeah.
bad. And I curse like a 13-year-old. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, if you get an allowance, then you got it all set.
Oh yeah, the wife does give me an allowance. So she's the breadwinner. She's the man and wears the pants in the house. So
Well,
she
that's good
we
because
we watch
that's
what she wants to watch. We eat when she's ready to eat. She's a 1950s dad. So.
Well, that's good, man. Well, I'm glad she allowed you off the leash today to come on. So that's good
Yeah.
to know that I could do that. But so I know you just mentioned that now you're doing the YouTube show, right? And you were on ESPN for a number of years. But your background is in comedy. So how did that kind of long road lead you to ESPN radio?
Well, it's weird. I really started it all at about the same time. My background is actually in IT from 1998 to like 2013. I was an IT guy. I was a dork. I was a nerd. Like that's how I made my living. I started off teaching Microsoft Outlook and then, parlayed that into, I tricked a bunch of people and lied on a resume like we all do and ended up working in IT from 98 to 2013, at which point I was laid off for like the second time. And I was like, it's weird. I get laid off a lot. I've learned that like right now as we speak, I have no job. And it just dawned on me that I'm not very good at holding a job because I got laid off several times before. So the last time that I got laid off, I was like, well, I have nothing to do. I might as well, try comedy. So I had always, from the time I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but I never really put the thought into it or had the balls to try it. And then I found myself without a job and sitting around with nothing to do. And I was like, well, maybe I'll give it a go. So I started comedy. And at the same time, a buddy of mine, AJ Hoffman, was working at ESPN radio. We knew each other because we owned a website together called The Cage Door. And
okay.
We used to cover MMA and we were both big in MMA at the time and we became friends. And I would always hound AJ. I'd be like, bro, you need to put me on the radio. I would be so good. I'm funny. He'd be like, nah, you're probably not that funny and you're probably not good at it. And it's difficult to get it. You don't just ask to get on the radio, right? Like you have to earn that. I was like, yeah, but I would probably be okay. He was like, bro. So what he tells me is he goes, why don't you go win this contest that ESPN does? And maybe the program director at the time, Dave Tepper, will let you get on air on occasion. And I was like, okay, that sounds easy. What is it? He says, it's called Rock the Mic and the winner might get on air. And I was like, all right, well, when does it start? This is on a Tuesday. He goes, it's this Friday. I was like, oh shit, okay. So I showed up. I started doing the contest for several weeks. It goes on. Eventually, I find myself still in the contest. We get down to the final day. It's me and one other guy. He does a boneheaded thing, and I end up winning the contest partially by luck. I mean, I got there on merit, but, part of it was luck. So they tell me, okay, well, you won. So they gave me a nice little trip to a golf resort. in San Antonio in the Hill Country. And then they were like, here's what we're going to do. This guy named Mike Liebeshock has been doing Houston Game Day on Sundays. And he needs a new co-host because the other one fucked up. Like he got drunk at a camel race and yelled at people. And now we had to let him go. So your mileage may vary on how that story actually went. I don't know. I wasn't there. So they're like, we're going to try you for 6 weeks. And if you suck, well, you got a golf trip out of it. Get out of here. But if you're good, maybe we'll let you do the show. And that was 7 years ago. And I just got laid off from that station in May because of COVID. Otherwise, I'd still be there. So that was how I started off, won a contest, started doing sports talk on Sundays, and slowly worked my way up to a midday show. And we turned that show into a #1 show in the market that won not just our time slot, not just our station, but won the entire sports talk market for several months. So yeah, it was a weird way to get there, but I got there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I used to listen to you on Sundays, and I would listen to you in that kind of 1 to 3 time slot pretty often. Or the 2 to 4, I'd pretty much catch you on depending on when I got out of work. But
yeah,
no, I've always loved listening to you. I always think you're funny. Of course. I mean, you kind of have to be. You set yourself a pretty big precedent saying Barry is funny is pretty much.
Yeah. It's a good thing. It's a good thing my Twitter handle wasn't Barry has a big penis. I will say that.
Well, the good thing is you're married. She's not going to talk about it.
Yeah, I felt confident that I could back it up. But if it would have been like Barry is handsome or Barry has a large penis, then I would have been.
Yeah, your expectations are set a little different, I think, with Barry is funny. But all right, so getting back to turning it over, right? Going from IT guys are usually pretty introvert.
Yeah.
So I'm in sales, right? So I can call anybody. I always feel confident, never scared to get on a meeting or anything. But I feel like I would shit my pants if I got on stage to try to do comedy. So how'd your first time go doing stand-up?
And actually, I'm supposed to, in the comedian bylaws that you get when you sign up, you're supposed to tell everyone you bombed the first time and that you were awful and that you worked really hard at it and then you eventually got good 15 years later. Well, I've only been doing it for 7, but I actually did pretty well the first couple times. I didn't really bomb until I started to think that I had it figured out. And that's when I started bombing. And then I figured out that I thought I had it figured out. And then when I figured that out, I don't know how that works. But then I was like, oh, okay, I got the big head. That's why I'm eating shit but I actually did pretty well. I still have the video. I will never release it now because I have too much self-respect. But I did okay. Like there wasn't a lot of people in the crowd. There was like 2 people plus a bunch of comics, but there was one guy recording it and he was laughing and everybody was laughing. It wasn't great. Like looking back, I look at it and go, oh God, that was so awful. But for your first time, I did decent. I say I did decent. The restaurant actually closed the next day. So maybe it wasn't as good as I thought. They literally were like, yeah, we're done. This is pretty shitty. We're done. So I closed it down, but I felt like I did all right.
Closing a location in your first job is pretty easy. That's not an easy feat to have.
No. That's how bad my comedy was. They literally quit owning a restaurant. They were like, well, we're not doing this anymore. This guy sucks.
Golly. So I know clearly that industry has been pretty hit hard by COVID as well. But now I did see, and I'm sure you're familiar with Bert Kreischer. He had posted something recently about drive-ins and how he thinks it's awesome to do a drive-in comedy. Would you ever do drive-in comedy?
No, I won't do Zoom comedy. I don't want to do drive-in comedy. I was raised, I'm young in comedy with 7 years in the business. That's not a lot. That makes me still kind of a newbie. But I was raised, I guess, by old school comics. And so for me, I look at comedy as there's certain things that are required. There's certain things you do. There's certain things you don't do. For me, having an audience in the room with me is a requirement for comedy. I don't want to do a Zoom show where, there's 12 faces on the screen and I can see them all going. That's not the same thing. I want to feel your breath and the laughter. I want to see the room. There's this vibe you get in a comedy room when it's clicking and everything is going great. You can't replicate that anywhere else. And you can't replicate it on Zoom and you can't replicate it at a drive-in. So for me, I've been asked to do Zoom shows and I've turned them all down. I've done a game show where it was like, you roasted people and you did that was fun, but it wasn't just me doing a set.
Mm.
I've turned that shit down. I don't. And then apparently, like when you do these drive-ins, you stand on the stage and you tell your jokes to headlights, and when they like you, they honk. Like, no, that to me, that's just heckling with your car. I don't like this. It should be a one. Now, if they flash their brights, that might be better, but then there's literally no audible feedback. It just all sounds awful to me. Awful.
Oof. Yeah, that's rough. Now, speaking of one of my favorite videos that you've put out is how to deal with hecklers. So speaking of honking, because you hopefully won't ever get that inside of a club.
Yeah.
What is that like? Because it's easy for me to do a show like this, right? Or you to do a show, or anyone to kind of do it. If someone hates you, maybe they write a comment, maybe they tweet at you, but it's not in your face and it's not during your session. So like, how do you do that? Like, you don't, I don't know. And I'm going to ask, right? Like, do you then turn into being like that roast kind of comedy where now I'm just going to roast you to get you out of my way? Or do you just say, I'm going to ignore it, keep going? Like, how do you balance that?
So, I mentioned earlier, I was raised as an old school comic. All my mentors and friends in the business taught me comedy and taught me the business and taught me like it was 1985, right? Like, and one of the things that I learned coming up is, as a new comic, as an MC, and then as a feature. So like the comedy hierarchy is the first person you see is the MC, and they're usually the newest comic on the show. They're usually the worst comic on the show. And then they bring up a person, and that's called the feature act. And they're getting there. They're moving up to becoming a headliner one day. And then the last guy is the headliner, or girl is the headliner, and they're usually really good at what they do. So it kind of gets better as the show goes. But I was taught early on as an MC, don't engage the crowd. Because what happens is, if you go after a heckler, it can backfire. And you can do what's called burning the room, which means you piss the crowd off. And now it doesn't matter. John Westling once said, it doesn't matter who talks into the microphone. They associate everybody on the show with that microphone. So if the first comic goes up and shits on the crowd, now they hate everybody that gets on stage. They're just out for blood. So it was always a concern for me not to engage with hecklers and burn the room. So I never did it. It's not a muscle that I practiced. It's not anything that I worked on. I don't do roasts. Like I like to write my jokes and go up and tell my jokes. And then if somebody would heckle, I would just ignore it. 99% of the time I would ignore it. On the one occasion that I might reference it, I would literally just be like, hey, could you please be quiet? Or, could you just stop talking or maybe go outside? Like, it was never something where I would engage with. But that night, I felt like I was at the point in my career where I was headlining the show. They were being disrespectful to all the comics. I didn't care how my set went. I didn't care if I did good. I was just mad at these people for being assholes. And I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm just not going to do my jokes. And I didn't. It was a 45-minute set. And about 30 to 35 minutes of it was just me shitting on the crowd. Just shit on all the comics. It was the most cathartic. It was the most fun I've ever had on stage. And I didn't tell a single written joke. It was so great for me personally. It was therapeutic, man. It felt great, but it's not something I would still do all the time. Right, I don't know. That's just my personality. Some people love it. Like, some people love to, I can't wait for someone to heckle me so I can go after them. But that's just not my style. It was an outer body experience for me for sure.
Well, that's cool. So now that you've done comedy now, I don't know if you've done it in every state, but I know you definitely travel. You definitely are on the road. You've done it in most states. Is there kind of maybe a certain area or certain groups of areas where you kind of know, all right, I got to stay away from these jokes because I'll walk my way into it? Or is it kind of like, no, I'm going to do my comedy and I'm going to see what they say?
It's a good question. Part of it, they call it reading the room. And if you're in the Bible Belt, I do this joke about Joel Osteen during Hurricane Harvey. And in the Bible Belt, when that joke was relevant, you could literally feel buttholes puckering up. And what? You're going to talk about Joel Osteen? Yes, he's a piece of shit. I'm going to talk about him. We're going to figure it out together. And this doesn't mean I hate Jesus. I just hate Joel Osteen. Not the same thing, right? But yeah, in the Bible, but you go to Tulsa, Oklahoma and tell religious jokes, probably not going to go that well. So you do read the room, like I have like maybe 5 minutes of material where I talk about growing up around Black people. A lot of my friends were Black, and I do this jokes that are, racial. They're not racist. They just discuss race and my view on it when I was in high school. Am I doing that in, Tuscaloosa? Yeah, probably not, because those white people are like, what? I don't mean, what? You actually hung out with black people? So it's all about reading the room and knowing who your audience is and, what jokes you should tell versus what jokes you shouldn't.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm originally from New Jersey, so growing up there and then moving down to Texas, I felt like all of the South was like that. So I completely can understand walking into a different room.
I dated a chick from New Jersey. Her name was Kathy. And Kathy thought when she had to move down from New Jersey, she was devastated. And she told me this. I was like, you might be the dumbest person I've ever fucking met. But she said, I didn't want to move here because I didn't want to have to ride a horse to school. And I was like, you are the stupidest fucking person. What are you talking about? She goes, I really thought everyone rode horses in Texas and that I was going to have to learn how to ride a horse to go to school. And I was like, you should have to move somewhere else. You should have to go to another country. You're too stupid to live in America. So were you like that when you were in Jersey? Were you like, oh, great.
I did.
I'm going to fall on a cactus on the way to the mall.
I did feel like I was going to roll into a town where it had like old wooden doors for a saloon and there were tumbleweeds in the street. Yeah, I thought this, I mean, and you know what?
You speak to some people in New Jersey. Like, how fucking dumb?
We just live on top of each other. We don't have to deal with I mean, you realize you could put like 50 New Jerseys inside of this state. We don't comprehend the amount of size.
And it would all be nothing but IROCs and gold chains and dudes named Vinny that tan laundry, whatever the fuck y'all weirdos up there do. Yeah, it's the stereotypes, right? Like, if you say Jersey, I immediately think of Snooki and what's the fucking Guido
situation?
Dude? Yes!
Yep.
Like, I'm looking at you like, oh, he's got some situation. You might be like the compromise or some shit. I don't know. But you definitely have some Jersey. You can tell no one's beard is lined up like that if they don't gym tan laundry at least once a week.
Oh, well, I wish I did. I wish I went to the gym more. So I think, I'm pretty pale, so I just get burned. I don't get tan. So the only thing I do is I'm a laundry. I'm a maid. I'm a male maid.
Just laundry.
Yep.
I get it. That's fine. You got to start somewhere.
And I got 3 kids, so it's nothing but laundry.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. So
wow. Sorry to hear about that. No, I mean, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah.
This is the guy with no kids. Ooh, boy.
Well, run the route you're running and keep running it.
Pull out game strong.
That's it. No, yep. I didn't learn that. I was all about the follow through.
At least 3 times it wasn't.
Yeah, no, that's the only 3 times my whole life. Stuck with it. 3 for 3. I'm going to the Hall of Fame. So I do have another question when it comes to kind of where you're at right now, right? You went from IT, moving into, being on radio, being on, doing comedy. With the situation you're in right now, of course, I know you said comedy, you can't wait to do that back in person again. But if all things were equal, especially financially, right? Would you prefer to kind of be your own boss and do your own show versus going? Yeah, that's what I think.
I know exactly. Yes, 1,000%. Especially going through what I just went through, getting laid off when it was out of my control. In radio, you learn that you don't always control your own destiny, no matter how good you are, how bad you are. Whether you put time into getting better at the craft or you become good at it for whatever reason, there's a lot that you can't control. I don't do sales. I talk into a microphone and try to make people laugh and keep them entertained for several hours a day. That's my job. And so what happens in radio is you still have to have money attached to you, and unfortunately that's a part of the business. I'm not a great I was in sales. I did, I sold all the shitty stuff, by the way. I sold cars and timeshares and shoes. Like, I never sold anything cool. So I hated sales. I sold real estate and I quit because I couldn't stand people. Like, I was like, oh my God, these fucking people are the worst. So I never sold anything cool. So I'm good at being funny. Well, I'm okay at being funny. But my job isn't to sell. So like when I lost my job, it was because the economy, took a dive because of COVID. And in this business, or in the business I was in, I'm not in it now, but in that business, you have to have money attached to you. You have to have sponsors. And so the sales team didn't do a good enough job of selling me, even though our show was number one. We were number one at the station. We were number one in the market at times. They never really sold the show, and they never really sold me. So when it came time to make cuts, they looked around and went, well, you're a 100% liability to our station. We have to let you go. And that's the business. No hard feelings. I love David Gow. I love ESPN. I love everyone there. If they called me to go back tomorrow, I certainly would do it, or I would at least consider it. But to answer your question, I 100% love having my own show and being my own boss. And now I have to sell, but it's up to me. It's not somebody else deciding they don't want to sell me because it's more difficult, right? It's not somebody else saying that I'm not doing my job the way they think I should do it. And that's why my ratings suck. Never mind the whole ratings. I could go on an hour on a rant on how shitty radio ratings really are. They mean nothing. But that's what there are like 100 people deciding the fate of radio station guys in a city of 6 million. That's how bad it is. So when your ratings are low, it's because 100 people were just busy that day or whatever. It's a whole shitty thing. So what I love is I control everything. I control the show. I control the sales. I control the content. I control when, where, how. If I, whatever I want to do that day, I get to do it. That freedom is amazing. And if I could do that the rest of my career, I would 100% do it. I love it.
Right. No, it's good to hear. Because that's where I felt like your answer is going to be.
Is that what you're doing with this? Are you trying to get your own thing?
For sure. I would love to see where this thing can go and grow legs on it. Really, what I wanted to do is I've always been interested in following people from all over, right? Comedians, athletes, actors, and politicians, everything in between. And I just really want to get better personally on my side of it, of my interviewing skills, right? Listening, kind of understanding where people are. But I'm just interested in people. Like, the first podcast I ever listened to was Joe Rogan. That's kind of like, I think, the gold standard for how you do all this. And I listened to him say that his favorite thing about the podcast is not the followers, the money, the success, the cool stuff he has.
You believe that?
I think are all great. Well, he's also rich before he did it, so I think it's different too. But I think it's he gets to decide who he talks to. It's a range of people, and he's learned more from doing the show than probably anyone would. Going on Google trying to who's going to talk to a neuroscience guy just random, Yeah. But hey, bring him on there for 2.5 hours. Nobody, or at least not me. I'm not there yet. Maybe if I was making $100 million on a Spotify contract, I'd listen to every neuroscience.
Listen, when you're on top, it's easy to get guests. Trust me when I tell you this. This is why when we talked about at the beginning, look, I've had I would say I'm a D-list celebrity in the city of Houston. Okay, like I'll get recognized once a quarter at the gas station. Some guy's like, hey, I thought you were black. And then that's like, no, that's about how it goes, right? But so I'll reach out and I could get D-list celebrities to do my show. But when you start getting outside of your pay grade, everyone's like, yeah, I'm above you now. So it's always a struggle. But once you're on top, everyone wants to do the Joe Rogan podcast because everyone wants the exposure. So,
for sure. So I do want to ask another thing too. When you're on the radio, right, you're ESPN radio, right? So there is some sort of expectation that you have to talk about sports for a large majority of your show, right? I know with me personally, when COVID hit, I thought I was going to have this really hard, I can't wait for sports to come back. And honestly, since sports have been back, I think I've watched a total of one baseball game combined. I haven't watched a minute of basketball. Football will probably be different because that probably is my favorite sport to watch. But I think this has almost been I've lost such care for sports in general, which I think is even more interesting in going on the podcast side is no one's telling you what you have to talk about.
Yeah, it's funny because I have developed a certain amount of apathy for sports as well. I built the fan base that I do have. I built the following that I do have because of sports talk radio. And so when I started Barry on Deck on my YouTube channel, I felt like I had to keep a foot in the sports realm, right? Like that's how people discovered me. And to abandon that would probably be premature. I think eventually I could see the show becoming something where sports is an afterthought. Right now, it's a pillar.
Right.
But I have become more apathetic to sports. I think a lot of people have. It's like anything. When you're in the midst of doing something, you can't see how you could live without it. But when you're forced to live without it and you're forced to become more creative or, figure something else out, then you look at it in a different lens and you're like, I mean, we just went 4 months without any sports. I did okay. I mean, I started playing Warzone on Call It Online, which I swore I would never play online video games because having a 13-year-old tell me to go, blow my mom, and I'm like, bro, what? But it's fun, And so I'm doing different things that I wouldn't have done. I'm doing this show. I see where people are like, I mean, even with football, I'm a Texans fan, so I'm really not looking forward to a season. Again.
I'm a Jets fan. I haven't looked forward to a season my entire life.
Oh, my God.
I'm a Jets, Mets, and Knicks, so maybe that's why I don't watch sports as much.
Oh, my God. It's not too late to pick a new team.
Well, my wife is a Houston homer, so she's the reason we live here, and as well as the reason I watch those teams. But no, I think the other thing too is I think my apathy towards sports has been I don't believe they're going to last. Like I guess the NBA is doing a pretty good job, with the bubble and keeping guys safe.
Very good job.
Except for Lou Williams because hot wings are life, bro. But the major leagues is not right. Like they're gonna continue to run into issues, and I just think that's a trickle down. So I guess maybe I'm just not getting my hopes up that it's gonna last very long because we don't seem to have any of this under control.
And then even when we got baseball, it's not baseball. 7-inning doubleheaders, runner on second and extra innings, the injuries that are piling up, the way no fans. It's just not. We're getting a watered down version of the sport. So
yep. Yeah, it's been weird to watch. It's been weird to watch. It's been weird to pay attention to. I do still try to keep up, mostly highlights or kind of reading about it. So I will ask your question on this. So with the Astros still kind of being everyone's most hated team for being the only one that cheated, right? They're the only ones. Joe Kelly, the Joe Kelly thing to me is really, really interesting because one, he went headhunting on the Astros, but he also was on a team that was also caught cheating. And he wasn't even a Dodger when they got burned by the Astros. So I feel like he's like that girl that just wants to hang around with the really good looking guys and pretend that he's part of the group, but you're really not. And
oh yeah. No, Joe Kelly is, to me, he's like an Instagram influencer. You don't see all the bullshit, right? Like he's just like, I'm an enforcer. No, you're not. First of all, you're kind of a hoe. That's what you are, Joe. You're an Instagram hoe. That's all you are. Like really, you threw at a guy's head. You could have fucking killed him. You're talking shit as you walk away to go hide behind your teammates. You weren't even on the team that was affected. You were on a team that cheated. Everything about that screams Instagram hoe. Get out of here. No one, if Clayton Kershaw wants to plunk somebody, I don't know, if Kenley Jansen wants to plunk something, okay, do that. I get that. If Corey Seager wants to charge the mound and just start beating on Lance McCullers just because, I get that. Now, the only one that I'll say that doesn't have a beef is Cody Bellinger. Bro, you went 0 for 15 at home. You struck out 7 times in 15 at-bats in Game 6 and Game 7. You need to shut up, bro.
He's become the biggest whiny bitch in the major leagues in the last 12 months.
Yes! It's the worst. It's like you, of all the Dodgers that could complain, you and Joe Kelly need to shut up. Like, you have no reason to bitch at all. You were awful in the World Series. And let's not forget, the Dodgers lost Game 7 at home where it was impossible. They lost 2 of 4 games at home, where it was damn near impossible for the Astros to cheat. The Astros didn't win the World Series because they cheated. They won the World Series because the Dodgers weren't as good. Period.
Yeah, it is true. I think that's part of the reason too. I'm hoping baseball doesn't last. I cannot stand a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. Whoever wins, we all lose.
Yes.
And growing up where I grew up, all of my friends, or a large majority of my friends, are Yankee fans. I do have 2 that are hardcore Met fans.
How did you end up a Mets fan? Were you just like, these guys are weird and I'm going to be different, or what?
I think it was I just enjoyed pain. I enjoyed,
obviously,
just being let down. No, it's my father. My father's a Jets and a Mets fan. But also my father saw them win, which is a little different than I did. I have not seen them win. So that's
your father got Joe Namath calling a shot. You got Joe Namath, I could kiss you. 2 completely different Joe Namaths.
Yep.
Yeah, you got in on the wrong end of that for sure.
Yeah, like we got Brett Favre dick pics instead of Brett Favre Super Bowl. So we got a whole bunch of just different players at the end of their career, players at the beginning of their career. They never seem to work out.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do feel kind of comfort in is that the Texans are just as much of a dumpster fire as the Jets are.
Oh,
so that makes me feel comfortable to live here in Houston.
Yeah.
I don't really, we love football, we watch it, but the Texans are very frustrating as a franchise to watch.
They're an average franchise doing average things, but expecting above average support. I mean, this franchise has never done anything to warrant the amount of support and love that they get, other than the fact that they replaced another franchise that left the city. That's why people love the Texans. They don't love the Texans because the Texans are America's team. They don't love the Texans because it's one of the greatest football dynasties that exists. They love it because it's all we got. It's like we were just talking about with sports. Like, you just watched it because it was like, well, this is what I do. And then when you're without it, I feel like if the Texans moved, if they just went to St. Louis and became the St. Louis Texans, which would probably still, I mean, look, if the Utah Jazz, if that's the whitest like city in the world, Utah, and they're the Jazz, they couldn't name you one jazz song or singer. I promise you that. Just like in St. Louis, they would still be like, oh, we're the Texans. That's weird. But yeah. I digress. If the Texans moved to St. Louis, I feel like people would miss football. But at the end of the day, everyone would be like, I'll find another team. I'll just be a Cowboys fan. I'll be whatever. I don't know. It's such a mediocre franchise that gets way more than it deserves. I don't understand it. I've been bitching about it for years. The people that spend money on this franchise are idiots. And hear me out. Hear me out. Don't listen. If you spend your money, you're basically telling Bob McNair's kinfolk that it's okay to continue his legacy of not doing anything except collecting checks. It's that simple.
Yeah, they've had some really weird runs between GMs, coaches, coach GMs. I think Bob gets way too much of a leash. I think he should have been fired years ago. I think Bob McNair, was at best a mediocre owner. And he made them relevant for a little while. They had some good teams. But yeah, now I know you are a Cowboy fan. Am I correct in that?
I am a Texans fan. I am a Texans. I hate the Cowboys. My cousin.
What is that? Uncle, what is that beef about? What is that beef about?
Listen, it's all insecurity on the part of Houstonians. We're the most Houstonians are like comedians and Instagram hosts. We're very we're very insecure. Like, we have to make you think, oh, I love it's for the H. Like, we're like, God, please, can we move somewhere where there's no fucking humidity? That's what the H really stands for. It's humidity, not Houston. It's awful. But we're an insecure lot is what we are. And we've always felt we have Houston pride, but then you look at Dallas and you're like, man, that's fancy up there. It's kind of nice. And fucking Houston's dirty and shit. And it's hot and we don't get snow. And it's just insecurity because there's listen, to have a rivalry, both sides have to be in on it. And I can promise you, if you go talk to they don't think about Houston. When they see something Houston, they think about Houston like Yankees fans think about the Mets. They're like,
I grew up in that rivalry. You have to win to matter.
Yeah, no one gives a shit about you. Like, we hate the Red Sox. We're Yankees. We hate the Red Sox, right? Dallas is like, we hate, I don't know, the Giants and the Redskins. Yeah. But the Texans, we don't give a shit about the Houston Texans. No one cares about Houston and Dallas. But the problem is everyone in Houston is obsessed with hating Dallas, and I've never understood it. Now, personally, I hate the Cowboys because my cousin and my uncle were huge Cowboys fans, and they were fucking obnoxious. And it made me hate every Cowboys fan because.
Well, that's a lot of the animosity in New York or the New York area. That's another thing you will find from Jersey people. If you kind of have two parts of Jersey, you have like the just outside New York Jersey, and then you have the pretty much everyone else, and that's kind of hillbilly Jersey. No one really cares about them. It's the outside of New York Jersey that matters. But yeah, that's pretty much the thing. It's Yankee fans are obnoxious, so that's why Met fans hate Yankee fans. Typically, Met fans are your more blue collar fans. Your Yankee fans are a little more executive Wall Street guys, and so there's always been just a secret hatred there. But the Mets don't win on that side either.
No.
So I one more question on the Texans before we move past this tremendous franchise. So Mahomes gets paid that $500 million contract, right? Now I understand Watson is not Mahomes, but Watson's going to be in for a huge payday. The Texans have done a horrendous job of paying players, keeping players, other than really J.J. Watt, and I guess now they're going to pay Tunsil a ton of money to maybe play.
Well, they have to.
Yeah. What do you think happens with Deshaun Watson?
I think that they back up the Brinks truck and give him whatever he wants and whatever the market dictates that he should get. And he's one of the, I think he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's not a guy that you let walk. If you think you can win a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson, if you think he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, then you have to pay him and you have to keep him. And I think that they think that. I think that they, despite Bill O'Brien and everything else, I think that you have a franchise quarterback that you feel like, with Matt Schaub, he would put up numbers, but you were still like, okay, if we might luck into an AFC title or something. But I think with Deshaun Watson, he's a winner. He's always been a winner, and he'll continue to do that. And look what he's done with a raggedy offensive line. He's had DeAndre Hopkins. Run game has been suspect for most of the time that he's been there. He's done a lot of good things that's made him a superstar already, and I think that they know that. So they're going to pay him what he wants. Now, is he going to get Mahomes' money? I don't think so. But he's going to get probably more than he's earned so far, but the money's going to be on potential, which is scary. But you've got to pay. Sometimes you got to pay to keep a guy and cross your fingers and hope you win one with him, as opposed to letting a guy win one and then paying him and it not paying off. So they're on that upward track, and so is his pay scale. That's just, that's the nature of football.
I just hope he can stay healthy, because when he's healthy and he's on the field, he's electric. He's the best thing I've seen in my 10 years in Houston to wear that jersey on the offensive side of the ball.
No doubt. I would say Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins, but those 3 are really on offensively. Those are the 3 pillars of offensive greatness in this city, and the rest of it's just been Aaron Foster.
Yeah, I was going to say Aaron Foster
level.
Yeah.
But man, I don't think Aaron Foster is going to go in the Hall of Fame. I think DeAndre Hopkins, when his career is over, he could be a Hall of Famer. I think Andre Johnson could be a Hall of Famer, and I think Deshaun Watson, if he continues, could be a Hall of Famer. That's pretty much it right now.
Yeah, it's no David Carr going to the Hall of Fame, but that's.
How does David Carr have a Super Bowl and Deshaun Watson may never get one?
Deshaun Watson may never get to an AFC Championship game with this group. Oh. But yeah, no, it is. It's
Brian.
But that's the thing though. Would you rather not get one, but know you were the guy for 15 years, or would you rather get one and half the people didn't even know you were on the team when they won one? I'm sure
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think that depends on the competitive spirit of the player, right? Some guys just want to get paid. Some guys just get their check. Deshaun Watson doesn't strike me as that guy. When you consider the humble beginnings that he came from, and he's earned his spot, and I think he's a winner and he wants to win. And I think that, just like guys like Patrick Mahomes, I think Patrick Mahomes wants to win. I don't think he values money over Super Bowls. I think he looks at it as a benefit and a reward. I don't think you have to worry about a guy like Deshaun Watson not wanting to win. That's just, he doesn't. I don't know the guy personally. I've met him a few times, but he doesn't strike me as that kind of guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And his run at Clemson, he didn't seem to be fazed by Alabama or anyone else. His run in the NFL, he hasn't had an easy test to a lot of things, but he doesn't seem like anyone that's willing to give it in. So I'll round it out quickly with the third Houston major sports team, the Rockets. They've looked pretty good, in 2-ish games in the bubble. I'm trying not to really watch much of it. I'm just kind of listening to a lot of I'll wait till they get to the playoffs. I'm not going to watch regular season bubble games. But do you think the Russell Westbrook, James Harden, we're going to run and we're going to shoot in 5 seconds and we're going to do it? Do you think they can actually make a run at this given the circumstances of the NBA right now?
Before the restart, I would have told you no. I don't think that they could win a championship. I still think it's going to be monumentally difficult for them. But I think that the chances are better now than they were prior. And I think that the restart has helped. Getting rest for all these guys has helped. And I think it's allowed them to figure out a more of an identity and actually build some chemistry, believe it or not even on the court. But I think everybody's bought into this system. They know that look, we're small ball. We're going to have to figure this out. And you can see guys committing, but this team is only going to go as far as James Harden and what he commits to. Russ is in 100%. PJ Tucker is going to give you everything every night, even if he, ends up with 0 points and 0, rebounds. He's still going to hustle and play defense. James is the key. And as James goes, this team will go. If he's dedicated, if he's committed defensively, if he's committed to winning, then I think they can go. Do I think they could beat LA in a 7-game series? Either LA team? No. Do I think they could beat the Bucks in a 7-game series? No. But I think they can give them fits, and I think they could get close. You saw it when they played the Bucks. If you watched that game, yep. James Harden committed on the defensive end, and this whole team did, and they beat the best team in basketball right now. Now, you could argue, if record-wise they are, you could argue is that really them or the Lakers or the Clippers. But they took one of the 3 best teams and beat them defensively, not offense. They didn't outscore them. They beat them defensively. So I think the commitment is there, and I feel better about it now. But if you asked me to bet my house, no, I'm not betting on the Rockets to beat one of those 3 teams. They're good. They ain't that good.
Yeah, I do think that since the restart, they're actually better than their ranking will put them in the playoffs. I actually even think the Clippers are kind of on a downtrend. I think they will fizzle out a little bit more than the Lakers will. I still think it's going to be LeBron against Giannis. I think that's going to be your finals.
That's probably accurate.
Which is, I don't like always calling scratch, but I still think that'll be your finals. I do just have one more question. And again, Barry, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, man, no worries.
So I'm not the type of guy that's a typical, I'm going to go mow my lawn and look at those pretty lines. But I know how popular lawns are to you. So yesterday as I was mowing mine, I looked at it. I was like, you know what? The lines are pretty good. So I wanted to ask you, how's your lawn looking right now?
Right now, in fact, when we're done, I'm going to go do yard work. Believe it or not. I mowed yesterday. Here's the problem. So I live on 1.3 acres. When we bought this lot and built this house, we left a lot of grass. And that's why I became a lawn guy. I always hated mowing the yard. But I think we spent $9,000 on grass to put on this big lot. And so when you invest that money, this isn't radio money. This was IT money. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I got IT money. But when you invest that much money into something and it starts dying, you're like, oh shit, I got to learn about this. So I started learning about lawns and how to take care of them. And that's why I became a lawn guy. Honestly, if I had my choice, I would just ride on a riding lawnmower and drink beer, and the rest of it I could give a shit about. But I'm forced to, especially now with no job. I can't pay somebody to come do this yard. I got to do that shit myself. Yep. But yeah, I'm gonna go do yard work, and I care how it looks. But it's right now, it's half mowed. I mean,
oh, you gotta stop halfway.
I stopped halfway because I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'll just mow this side, and to my credit, I fertilized before all the rain. So it's nice and thick. And, I like my lawns like I like my women.
Yep. Nice and green.
Green and grassy. But no, it's so it takes a long time to mow because it's so tall and thick, but that's how you want your St. Augustine. So don't get me started. I'll turn this whole sumbitch into a lawn episode.
Well, look, man, I'll hold you to that then. Maybe we'll have another one where we can go deep dive into lawns.
I'm down.
Yeah, I know. It's great. No, it makes me care about it. Well, Barry, look, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you spent a couple hours on your show today. Barry on Deck is from 2 to 4 every day Central Time on YouTube, Monday through Friday.
Yep. Just go to Barry is Funny on YouTube. Just youtube.com/Barry is Funny. Easy to find. In fact, all my social media is Barry is Funny. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You're looking for me? Barry is Funny. With an A. Don't spell it with an E. That's how assholes spell Barry. That's like strawberry.
Well, that's a berry. Yeah.
Yeah, Barry like Barry Manilow. Barry.
Awesome.
Like Barry White.
Well, that's what we'll do. I hope, for all 7 people that are probably listening to this episode, I hope you guys
Are we live or is this recorded?
No, this is recorded.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, if we're live, I wouldn't have cussed. No.
Oh, no. We're recorded. I'll make sure only we hear you cursing. So, Barry, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see what else you come out with and look to connect sometime in the future.
Thanks for the invite. Good luck on this. When you post it, let me know. We'll get it out on Twitter and make sure people come listen.
I appreciate it, man. I will do.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Hey, thanks, man.